वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। ओम श्री महागणपतये नमः। ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। अस्मद्गुरुभ्यो नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। श्रीमेधा दक्षिणामूर्तिस्वामिने नमः। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। सच्चिदानंद रूपाय कृष्णाय क्लिष्टकारिणे नमो वेदांत वेद्याय गुरवे बुद्धिसाक्षिणे कृष्णद्वैपायनं व्यासं सर्वलोकहिते रतं वेदाब्ज भास्करं वन्दे शमादिनिलयं मुनिं। सहस्रमूर्ते पुरुषोत्तमस्य सहस्रनेत्राननपादबाहोः सहस्रनाम्नां स्तवनं प्रशस्तं निरुच्यते जन्मजरादिशान्त्यै। Namaste once again all of you.
Namaste Guruji.
Good. So in the last class we were seeing this, started seeing the meaning of this shloka. Pavitranam pavitram yo mangalanam cha mangalam daivadam devadanam cha bhutanam yo avyaspita. This slokam we started, and the first quarter, Pavitranam Pavitram, is what Adi Shankaracharya is explaining. He has already given the meaning, Pavitranam Pavitram, the purifier of all purification. That is what, the Ekam Daivatam, that is what is being referred to. So he has already given, and now he is quoting shlokas from various scriptures, from Puranas, and also quoted from even Upanishads, in order to establish why that meaning is applicable for this Pavitranam Pavitram. Because while interpreting the Shastras, the scholars, they may give an interpretation. But there are other scholars who have to validate that. Otherwise, that interpretation will not be accepted. So it is just like what happens in the courts. When the Adi Shankara writes a bhashyam, that bhashyam will be scrutinized, threadbare by other scholars, and they will point out lot of mistakes or inconsistencies in his approach and all that. So it is the responsibility of the Bhashyakara in order to establish beyond any doubt that what his interpretation is giving is scripturally correct, based upon what the Shastras say only, and not something that he has imagined, that interpretation. So that is what the process is, and especially for this Pavitranam Pavitram, he gives lot of quotations. In fact, we won't have time. We will have time in the sense it will drag on and on and on. So many quotations he gives. And the last class we were seeing this Hare Namaiva 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 Mama Jivanam Kalau Nastyeva 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 Gadiranyata. This was a sloka which is from Brihat Narada Upanishad, Purana, Brihat Narada Purana, we were seeing this particular shloka, which is when I think the class, we closed the class. So what this shloka is saying is that in Kali Yuga, Kalau, in Kali Yuga, the name of Hari alone is my Jivana. It is my entire life is spent on remembering Hari only, Hari's name only. Okay. There is no other refuge, right? Na asti eva gati ranyata, anyata gatihi na asti. And 3 times it is repeated. First it says Harir Namaiva, Namaiva, Namaiva Mama Jivan. 3 times Namaiva is coming. Why? To emphasize that is the only thing. Nothing else is there. And then in the second line, Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatiranyata. There is no other refuge, there is no other destination, there is no other pursuit other than remembering Vishnu's name, Hari's name. That is what it says. And this is, as I said, relevant, very relevant for Kali Yuga, because unlike the other Yuga, where they had certain Yuga dharmas, people were by and large, in fact, if you see, right from Satyuga, Krita Yuga, then Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, the human values have been declining. If you actually see, this is a very subtle observation you should see. In Satyuga, and this is, we can understand this declination or declension of the human values from the role of a woman in the society. In the Krita Yuga, we have the story of Satyavan Savitri. Savitri was so powerful that she could actually get Satyavan back even from Yamaraja. That was the highest, power a woman enjoyed in the Krita Yuga. Then comes Treta Yuga, where we have got the Ramayana. In Ramayana, Sita is shown as a subordinate role to Rama. And that is why, even though she willingly goes to the forest and suffers all that with him, still, when it comes to question of Rama Rajya, public criticism and all that, Rama has to put on his crown and deal with Sita as if she is a common individual. So there's one step down, the women's status in the society. Then come to Dwapara Yuga, Mahabharata. How Draupadi is being treated in the entire Mahabharata. Further, declension of the women's role. And come to Kali Yuga, we know what is happening to the status of women in our society. Of course, Kali Yuga, the women have all joined together and they are fighting it back. But as recently Supreme Court said, it's a man's society. It is, the society has been conceived for men only. Like that. Recent case, last 2-3 days ago, Supreme Court has made a remark. So what I'm saying is, if you see the role of women, we can see this declining. And because of that, what has happened? Dharma has declined. People adhering to dharmic way of life is going on declining. And every yuga we can see this decline. Because in Treta Yuga, Ravana abducts Sita. Adharmic activity. He does that. So what I'm saying is, in Kali Yuga, people don't do any of the dharmic activities, any of the activities prescribed. people, I'm talking generally, there are exceptions everywhere. There are people who still strictly adhere to all the Vedic way of life. But by and large, Sandhya Vandanam people don't do. Shraddha karma, like Pitru karmas, Amavasa Tarpanam and all, they don't do. Even if they do it so mechanically, just for, their own ego satisfaction, or to show to their family that, okay, I am a religious person. They have no shraddha in doing those karmas. So what is the way to earn punya in Kali Yuga? Because these are all what the Shastric methods of earning punya, and you are not doing any of them. What way you will earn punya? Just take Rama's name, Hari's name, Krishna's name, Vishnu's name. Just to keep on taking Ishwara's name. That will keep on purifying. Punya means what? Removal of papa. So that will keep on purifying. Right? So this mantra says that there is, just to take Ishwara's name, your papas will be purified. That is the meaning. But as I said, there are people who will catch hold of this particular point. He says, oh, why should I do all these things? This Brihat Narada Purana, they will quote also, says that if just to take Hari's name, I'm going on taking Hari's name. I say Rama Krishna, Rama Krishna, Rama Krishna. Why should I do all the other Shraddha karmas? So these kind of arguments we do see rather. Right? Some people argue like this. But what we should understand is that it does not say they are prohibited. These are in lieu of that. The question is, it is just like every day you are supposed to take a bath. But you are sick, you cannot take bath. So at least give yourself a sponge bath. You can't take sponge bath also, then there are mantras there, Apo Ishta, Mayo Bhuha. You can just sprinkle, wash your face and then wash your hands and legs, and at least that much you can do. So these are not this way. So suppose they say that, okay, you wash your hands and feet, that is not a substitute for taking bath. But if circumstances are not permitting, it's okay. However, if circumstances permit, then there is no excuse for not doing all those karmas. This will not work there. You must understand. As I told you, the example I gave, even in Vishnu Sahasranamam itself, in the Falashruti, this comes, Sri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulyam. It is equivalent. Taking Rama's name thrice, Sri Rama 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 Rameti, it is equivalent to Sahasranama Tulyam. What does that mean? So, I will not do Sahasranama Paranam, I will only do Rama Rama Rama. Is that enough? See, these are all glorification of why we should take the Bhagavan's name always. We must always keep Bhagavan in our mind. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita, there is one sloka in the 8th chapter. That is also, people catch hold on to that sloka. Bhagavan Krishna tells Arjuna, Antakale cha mameva smaran mukva kalevaram yaprayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshayah. He says. What does it mean? A person who remembers me in Antakale at the time of his death, just he remembers me at the time of death, he will get moksha. He will actually gain my nature. Bhagavan's nature he will gain if he takes my name at the time of death. So people say, why I should chant throughout my life Bhagavan's Nama? At the time of death, I will just remember, I will say, hey Krishna. That's it. Immediately, I will get moksha. Shortcut, shortest cut. This is there. In Bhagavad Gita, there is a sloka and people catch hold of this. But what they miss is, after the next sloka, there is one more sloka Krishna says. Tasmat. The sloka starts with Tasmat. Therefore, Sarveshu Kaleshu Ma Nanusmaran Yudhyacha. That is, therefore, you should remember me Sarveshu Kaleshu all the time. That sloka they will not, quote. They will quote the first one. What is Krishna wanting to say? He says that if you have not taken my name, if you have not remembered me throughout your life, there is no way you are going to remember me at the time of your death. Remembering Bhagavan, remembering Ishvara should become a part of your life. Getting up, sitting down, lying down, Krishna, Rama, this name, keep on taking this name, that name. Early morning when you get up with the thought of Bhagavan only, Ishvara only. Everything that you do, when you are going out of your house, remember Bhagavan. That is what Sada Sarveshu Kaleshu, all the time remember me. So what he says, all the time remember me. That is, at the time of death you remember me, you will get moksha. Therefore, all the time remember me. Then only at the time of death also, when this life is leaving this body, that time also automatically you will remember me. And that if you remember, you will get moksha. So all these are all we must understand, that the whole purpose is we need to keep on purifying. This Chitta Shuddhi is the main aim at this point in time. At this point in time, the aim is not to get self-knowledge. To gain that self-knowledge, what is required, preparatory stage is what we are focusing on. So these are all methods to get the Chitta Shuddhi there. Pavitranam Pavitram. Okay. Then another sloka, he says, Sarvada Sarvakaryeshu Nasti Tesham Amangalam Yesham Hridisto Bhagavan Mangalayatano Harihi. This is from Skanda Purana. Okay. Tesham Sarvada Sarvakaryeshu Amangalam Nasti. For such people who keep on taking Bhagavan's name, keep on remembering Bhagavan's name, keep on chanting Bhagavan's name, keep on singing his glories. For such people, in all their undertakings, Sarvakaryeshu, there is no amangalam. No inauspiciousness can come or will come in all their pursuits or efforts. They will always be successful and there will be no failure at all. That's what this sloka says. Okay. Because why? When you keep on doing that, remembering Bhagavan, then every action, when you remember Bhagavan and do the action, you are actually doing karma yoga. You are offering that action to Bhagavan. And then whatever you get in result, you are taking it as a prasada. So there is nothing called a good prasada, bad prasada, tasty prasada, not tasty prasada. When we go to a temple and whatever prasadam we get, we accept it. Similarly, whatever result when we get, when we accept it with wholeheartedly, there is no question of any failure. Failure question will come only if you have a certain expectation and that expectation is not met, then failure comes. Question of failure comes. But when you have no expectation, whatever comes, Bhagavan, whatever you choose to give me, I am prepared to accept it wholeheartedly. I have no expectations. I am just doing this karma as a nishtava karma. I have no expectations. Then what? There is no question of failure. Whatever you get is actually successful. No question of any failure. Yesham hridayastah Bhagavan Mangalayatano Harihi. For those, who are those people? For those in whose heart there is Bhagavan Hari, who is the abode of all Mangala, auspiciousness. You will see the next quarter, Mangalanam cha Mangalam, more detail in Mangala. Okay. In fact, there is a interesting anecdote about Adi Shankara. It is said that when he wrote the Bhashyam for Brahma Sutra, Adhyasa Bhashyam, right, the first portion, Brahma Sutra, he started with this Adhyasa Bhashyam, and he started that Bhashyam without a Mangala Shloka. Usually, anybody starts anything, they will start with a prayer, Mangala Shloka, to invoke auspiciousness, to invoke the grace of the Lord for successful completion of that particular venture. That is the tradition. Okay. So he did not, in the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, he did not start with any Mangala Shloka. Straight away went to the Adhyasa Bhashya. Some scholars took objection to this. They said that this whole Adhyasa Bhashyam, the whole Brahma Sutra Bhashyam itself is Amangalam, because it has not been started with a Mangala Shloka by Shankaracharya. It's a great defect in any scriptural works. It's a big defect. So nobody should read Adi Shankara's Brahma Sutra Bhashya. So this was their, what you can say, criticism and attack on. And Brahma Sutra Bhashyam is such a great work he has done. That is why he is called Bhashyakara. Shankaracharya is referred to in Vedanta circles as Bhashyakara because he wrote the Bhashyam for Brahma Sutra, such a brilliant work. So they took this objection. So in response, what Advaitins do is they quote this sloka. A person who has got Ishvara always in his mind, in his heart, where is the question of any Amangalam for him? Adi Shankara was incarnate. I mean, he was Ishvara himself rather. He always, had Ishvara and Bhagavan in his mind only. So they quote this sloka and say that there cannot be any Amangalam for Adi Shankara. Whatever he does, whatever he touches, it will become auspicious. Because he is carrying Ishvara with him in his mind, in his buddhi, always. So that is what they say. Okay. So for him, Sarvada Sarvakaryeshu Nasti Tesham Amangalam. So they say that he need not write. If he chooses to write a Mangala Shloka, that is a bonus. He need not write any Mangala Shloka because he himself is Mangalam. That is what they say. Okay. So this Shloka is actually glorified with that anecdote of Adi Shankara. Then there are two more Shlokas he quotes, which we normally chant at the end of any puja or any Vaidika karma that we do. Because due to ignorance, lack of knowledge and training, whenever we do all these pujas and all that, there will be many acts of omissions and commissions. That, unavoidable it is. And according to Shastra, whenever you are doing any such ritual with a particular purpose in mind, then that purpose will be achieved only if the ritual is done properly, according to what the injunctions of the Shastras are. There should be no mistake, no error, nothing should be overlooked. There should be, to say in short, no omissions and commissions, error of omission and commission in doing that ritual. Then only you will get the result of that. This is what Shastras say. But that is in Kali Yuga especially not possible. So we make it up because Shastra always gives you a substitute also, or a prayashchittam for that. Okay. So what we do is that we chant these two slokas so that if any papa has accrued to me by, by all these errors of omission and commission, let the papas be go away. That's what he says. And what is that? And these are slokas from Vishnu Purana. Okay. Mantrahinam kriyahinam bhaktihinam janardana yatkritam tu maya deva paripurnam tadastu me prayaschittani aseshani tapak karmatmakani vai yani tesham aseshanam krishnanusmaranam param. Krishna 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 Shiva 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 Govinda Govinda. This is what, even after doing Sandhya Vandana karma every day, these slokas are chanted. Because even while doing Sandhya Vandana karma, there may be errors of omission and commission. Some of the mantras we might not have pronounced correctly. All those things possible. So, as a routine, mantrahinam, kriyahinam, without properly uttering the mantras, without properly doing all that actions which I was supposed to do. Bhaktihinam, while doing this puja, I might have some time lost the bhakti bhavana from me. I must have been thinking of something else, some TV serial. So the bhakti is gone for that time. So bhaktihinam, janardhana, yatkritam maya deva, yatkritam tu maya deva, whatever I have done it as an offering to you, hey Krishna. I am taking your name 3 times so that all these omissions and commissions are, the papas accruing on behalf of that are washed away. That's what he says. Okay. So here again, the emphasis is the highest form of prayaschitta is what? Krishna Anusmaranam Param. Param, highest. What is Anusmaranam? Krishna's name. That is what it says. Like this, Adi Shankara goes on and on and on. As I told you, about 34, 35 slokas are there. Shruti, Smriti, Purana, Itihasa, quotes from everywhere. Okay. Anyhow, this is what is Pavitranam, Pavitram. How to do Pavitra, that is, who is Pavitranam, Pavitram, and how we can gain auspiciousness is what was dealt with in this, slokas. So in Kali Yuga, remembering the Parameshwara, Ishwara, his name, chanting his name and singing his glories is the highest form of purification. That is what these slokas, Pavitranam, Pavitram, meaning is. Now let us see the next quartet, Mangalanam cha Mangalam. Mangalam means, as you all know, auspiciousness. That is what is the meaning. What is that which is considered auspicious? The Lord Parameshwara is considered the most auspicious. And that is the real auspicious end. That is what this Mangalanam cha Mangalam is being interpreted by Adi Shankara. Because this sounds Om and Atha. These are 2 words which are there in Sanskrit. Om is a sound, Atha is a word. These 2 are supposed to be very, very auspicious. That's why we start everything, all slokas we start with Om. The moment we utter Om, immediately that action, those words which we are going utter are purified and they gain auspiciousness. Similarly, the word Atha. The Bhashyam, Jaimini Bhashyam for Karma Kanda starts with, Athato Dharma Jignasa. Atha, it starts with. Atha, Ataha, Dharma Jignasa. Now, this is an analysis of this Dharma Shastra. All the dharmas which are stated in the Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas. Similarly, when Vedavyasa started Brahma Sutra, he starts with Atato Brahma Jignasa. That is how he starts. First word, Ata Ataha Brahma Jignasa. So the word atha is supposed to be very auspicious. And why it is said that Brahmaji, when he was about to create this entire jagat, this entire prapancha, this cosmos, he uttered these two words, Om and Atha. And that is why he, he lent auspiciousness to this entire creation. In fact, the creation itself is the most auspicious. Just imagine the creation, the aspects of creation, mind-boggling. The way it has been put together intelligently there, right? So anything that we want to create, anything that we want to say, do, Atha or Om. Om is enough for us. Atha normally is used when creating something for like a literature or some bhashyam and all. Okay. So that is what Adi Shankara gives the meaning as Mangalam as Sukham tat sadhanam tat nyapakam cha. So what is this Mangalanam cha Mangalam? What is Mangalam? What is auspiciousness? He says Sukham. Auspiciousness means happiness. That is what is auspicious. Auspicious, we can say. What is that auspiciousness in practical terms? Adi Shankara says, first is happiness. Sukham. Then he says, Sukha sadhanam. Whatever gives that happiness is also Mangalam. Then Sukha Jnapakam. Whatever makes you know that, basically Vedas, scriptures, makes us know that what is happiness, how we should go about getting that happiness. All this knowledge is there in the scriptures. That is Jnapakam, which reminds us that. Okay. So, all these three things, Sukham, Sukha Sadhanam, Sukha Jnapakam, are all auspicious. Because Shruti is the pramana to reveal all the various types of happiness, various means to attain that Sukha. And also eventually Upanishads reveal what exactly is happiness. That is the ultimate message of the Upanishads. Vedanta, the end portion, all Vedas having said anything, ultimately it ends with this. What is that happiness? What are the means for that getting permanent happiness? That is the whole Upanishad subject or topic there. So here what Acharya is pointing out is exactly that Vedas are the Sukha Jnapakam. They are the ones, they are the means through which we will know what we should do to become happy. And all these dharmas, all the karmas which are there in the Vedas, prescribed, ordained in the Vedas, both Vidhi and Nisheda, all those, they are the means for happiness. If you follow what the scriptural, prescriptions, whatever scriptures say, do these things, result will be happiness. And if you refrain from doing whatever is the Nisheda karma, what scriptures forbid you to do, result will be happiness. You inverse the two equations. You don't do what is prescribed and you do what is prohibited. What will be the result? Unhappiness only. Now you will understand why we become unhappiness now and there. Yeah, most of the time that's what we are doing. We don't do anything what the scriptures are saying. And in fact, what scriptures say don't do, we do all those kinds of things. So that is the reason for unhappiness. So happiness is if you, understand what is being said and do according to the scriptures, according to the Vedas especially. The Vedas are the pramanam. They are the only sources of knowledge for this. What is happiness? From where we will know? Who can define happiness? Happiness means it should be permanent happiness, not some 1 minute, 2 minute happiness. Some joke you hear, you are happy, okay. Next minute, some back pain will be there, unhappy. So, it is from Vedas only we know the definition of happiness and the means to attain that happiness also. Okay. So, this is the complete meaning of Mangalam he gives, right? Sukham, Sukha Sadhanam, Tat Jnapakam. That's what he gives full meaning, right? And he adds there, Tesham api Paramananda Lakshanam Param Mangalam iti. That's what he says. The one who gives Mangalatvam to all these things. Because again the question is, you say Veda is Mangalam. And the Sukha, that is Sukham is Mangalam, Sukha Sadhanam is Mangalam, Tat Jnapakam is Mangalam. Who is the one who is providing that power of Mangalam to all these? The one who is actually of the nature of happiness himself, Paramananda Lakshanam. He is of the nature of supreme happiness, that Bhagavan, Paramatma. He is the one who is lending, or actually, I wouldn't even say lending, who is bestowing this power of happiness in all these things. He himself is Paramananda Lakshanam. Only what you have, only you can give, isn't it? You cannot give what you don't have. So Paramatma, Parameshwara, has got that he is of the nature of Paramananda Lakshanam. That is why he is able to bestow that happiness, that Lakshanam on all these things. That's what he says, right? So Ishvara is Param Mangalam, Mangalanam cha Mangalam. Who is Mangalanam cha Mangalam? That Ishvara is Mangalanam cha Mangalam. Pujya Swamiji says that generally every auspicious end has got a beginning. It's the beginning of another episode, or what you can another part. So it goes on like an endless serial. But when you are with the Lord means always remembering the Lord. No more separate from the Lord. When you are one with Ishvara, and in fact, when you understand that there is no difference between you and Ishvara, you are at that time you will understand that you are one with Ishvara. Then there is no more cycle of birth and death. That is what Pujya Swamiji adds. The serial comes to an end. So therefore, he is the Parameshwara is the Mangalanam cha Mangalam. Okay. So Lord Narayana, who is in the context of this Ishvara, we are referring to as Lord Narayana. He is Pavitranam Pavitram, Mangalanam Mangalam. Both he is. And when we say Ishvara, Narayana, Vishnu and all, we must just keep at the back of our mind, we are referring to pure consciousness. We are not referring to the Nama Rupa of Narayana or Vishnu or Ishvara or Parameshwara and all that. We are referring to pure consciousness. That we must remember that. Okay. Not, visualize some Shankha, Chakra, Gada, or having some snake around his neck with a trishul and one halo here, right? That's how they are all portrayed in all these photos. Every Bhagavad has got one halo, some light. Probably it is a light of knowledge, light of wisdom it reflects. I don't know. I have never seen any Mahatma who is with that halo kind of a thing. Right. Anyhow. So we are referring to the essential nature of Ishvara as pure consciousness. We are referring to Sat Chit Ananda Swarupa of Ishvara, not the form and name of Ishvara. Okay. Then next is Daivatam Devatanam. The one who is a Deva of all the Devatas. Right? You know, the word Deva itself is a very significant word. It is derived from the Dhatu Div. For those Sanskrit people who know Sanskrit, Div Dhatu. Div means to glow, to shine. Div Dhatu. From that only Devata comes. Okay. So that is the meaning Acharya takes here. The one who glows, one who shines. The Chit aspect. Right? As we have seen, earlier also, there are powerful forces in the cosmos. And these forces are called Devatas. The same forces which are there at the macro level, a small portion of those forces are there within us also. What we have got is nothing but a small share of those forces. And that is how our entire, if you can actually, our entire body is compared to the whole cosmos. Right? Everything is there in our body right from creation. Creation power, Brahmaji. Prajanane Brahma Tishtatu. Padhayor Vishnus Tishtatu. Hastayor Haras Tishtatu. Bahor Indras Tishtatu. All these are forces of nature. And when all these are, described, each part of our body is described when you do Nyasa. Lagunyasa, then we have got Mahanyasa and all. When we do that, what is it? We are actually visualizing the whole cosmos within our body. So our body is nothing but a small model of this entire prapancha. That is one of the important steps to understand. Well, what is cosmos? What is prapancha? Is Ishvara. And if our body is having all the powers that is there in the cosmos, what are we? We are also Ishvara. This is one more angle in which we can understand Aham Brahmasmi or Tattvamasi. So, what here Adi Shankara is taking is that Div Dhatu, Devata is derived from that. He is taking that. So, all our sense organs, everything, they are all Devatas. And what makes these Devatas do their respective jobs is a question. Devatanam Devatam. The Paramatma. Who is the ruler? We have seen who ordains everything. Ajñapayati, Ishte. We have seen those meanings, right? That Paramatma, he is the one who is ordaining everything. We also saw Bhishma, saw Vatapavate. Because of the fear of that Paramatma, this wind is blowing. Visho Deti Surya, because of the fear of that Paramatma, this sun rises every day and sets every day. What means saying that the whole order of Ishvara makes this entire cosmos work. And all these Devatas do their respective jobs. Agni Devata, the fire gives heat. Vayu Devata blows. Varuna Devata pours. All these Devatas do their respective jobs because of that Daivatam Devatanam. The Lord who is the Lord of all the Devatas, who is the master of all the Devatas. And again, we have to say that Satchidananda, we must remember. Okay. He is the Antaryami of all the Devas like Indra, Varuna, etc. Okay. And We just have to recollect Puja Swamiji's, oft repeated, Ishvara means order. Order of the universe. The cosmic order is what we refer to as Ishvara. And the cosmic order is nothing but Sat, Chit and Ananda. Ananda, we can take it as Anantam, limitlessness. That is the cosmic order. And that is what we, in Vedanta terms, refer to as Ishvara. Okay. So he is Parameshwara also, and he is the Deva of all the Devas. And that Parameshwara is described further as Bhutanam Yaha Avyayah Pita. All the Bhutas. Bhuta we can take here as all living beings, or just Shariras also we can take. In fact, it's better to take all living beings. Okay. Those which are born, who are subject to Vyaya. Anything that is born will be subject to destruction, death. But Ishvara is who? He is the Pita of all these Bhutas, but he is Avyaya. He has no destruction. There is no Vyaya in him. In fact, there is no modification also in him. He is the same. Which means what? He is never born. If Ishvara was someone who was born, then he will have Vyaya. So he is Anadi. Does not have a beginning at all. He is never born. You cannot say Ishvara, God came into existence on this particular day and time. You can't say that. You are always existing. That Ishvara is the Pita. He is the father, creator of this entire cosmos. All beings. We can include non-living beings also in this because they are also part of the creation only. Okay. Is the cause of everything. So here the Karana aspect, is emphasized. He is a cause for the entire universe. He does not undergo any Vyaya, any change or loss, nor is he subject to death. So Avyaya Pita means changeless father, literally. Avyaya Pita means changeless father. Well, for us, our fathers keep on changing in every birth, isn't it? This birth we had one father. In a previous birth we had a different father. So far as we are concerned, these fathers, every birth we have different fathers. But this father is the father of all births, father of this entire cosmos. So he does not have any change at all. He is a Nitya Pita, right? So all this, what was the question? Kimekam Daivatam Loke was the question of Yudhishthira. And he says, Bhishmaji says, Yaha, the one who is Pavitranam Pavitram, Mangalanam cha Mangalam, Daivadam Devadanam cha, and Bhutanam yo Avyayah Pita. All this, he says, and he says, Saha Ekam Daivatam Loke. He is the only Deva. So who can that be? Who has been? So only the Paramatma, Parameshwara can be that Deva. Okay. He is the father and he is the mother. That Brahman, that Deva, along with the Maya Shakti, creates this entire world. And for sake of just our understanding, we can take it as, father and mother. But Brahman and Maya are inseparable. Without Maya, Brahman cannot create this world. Without Brahman, Maya cannot create this world. They are inseparable. So they are like father and mother. Like is important. As if father and mother. Okay. So this is the maker and also the material cause. Material cause is that we are referring to as Maya. Okay, both the instrumental cause, efficient cause, and material cause, all three causes. Because when creating anything, all these are very important. There has got to be a material for creation. There has got to be an instrument for creation, and also there has got to be knowledge and efficiency in creation. So these three causes are very important for any creation. But Ishvara is all these three causes, along with Maya, all these three causes. Okay. He is the father of all of them. We can lose our local father, but we can never ever lose Ishvara as our father. Okay. So he is Avyaya, which I said. He does not have Avyaya means Vyaya, as we have discussed, Shad Vikaras, we saw Asti, Jayate, Vardate, Viparanimate, then Apakshiyate and Vinashyate. These are the Shad Vikaras we have seen. So he does not have any of these Vikaras. Ishvara does not have. Okay. So now Acharya comes to a slightly diversion. Not exactly diversion. He is now bringing this full Advaita Vedanta into the Bhashyam. Because Yudhishthira asked, Kim ekam daivatam loke? Which is that one Devata or one God or one Paramatma, one Parameshwara? Now Adi Shankara catches hold of that word ekam, one, and establishes that Advaitam is the only reality. There is only one, non-dual. There is nothing else. All those people who are talking about duality, so many different, devatas and all that, they are all ignorant people. They know nothing about Vishnu Sahasranama. They know nothing about our Vedanta. Our Vedas, what they are, the message of the Vedas. This is what. So he catches hold of that word ekam and establishes that throughout the Puranas, through Upanishads, everywhere, all these slokas talk about this one Devata. You pick up any Purana, he says, I will show you sloka which is referring to only one Devata. And you are saying Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, this, that, and all that, Rama, Krishna, all Nama Rupas of that one Devata. That's all. And Nama Rupa are Mithya. These Nama Rupas will not exist unless they borrow the existence from the pure existence, which is Sajjitananda Swarupa. That is the only Devata, that is the only Paramatma. So when it is said that Ishvara hai eko deva hai, actually he gets into another discussion. When it is said that Ishvara hai eko deva hai, does it mean that Deva is one and then Jiva is another one different from him? To point out that there is nothing called Jiva. Even what we called Jiva is nothing but a superimposition we have made on that Devata, on that Deva. That he is the one without a second. Advaitam, without a second. He quotes from Upanishads. And he starts by quoting two mantras from Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Eko Deva Sarva Bhuteshu Ghudas Sarva. Sorry. Eko Deva Sarva Bhuteshu Ghudah Sarva Vyapi Sarva Bhutantaratma Karmadhyaksha Sarva Bhutadhivasa Sakshi Cheta Kevalo Nirgunascha. This is the Upanishad mantra. He is Eko Deva, Eka Deva, only one Deva, and who is Parameshwara, without a second. Okay. After creating all the beings, he entered into them and hid himself. Gudaha. Sarva bhuteshu gudaha. The word hidden may give us an idea of a location. So which immediately question will arise. Earlier you were saying he is Sarva Vyapi, he is everywhere. Now you say that he entered into the beings and he is hiding himself. What does that mean? It means that he is both immanent and transcendental. He is inside and outside. Inside, we say he is hidden in all beings because we don't know that he is there. For a Jnani, there is no hidden Devata. He knows that he is Devata. For us only, from our standpoint only, all this Buddha hai, hidden and all these things come. So the Shruti, the Upanishad is talking the language which we will understand. Okay. So he is immanent, that is innermost, and also transcendental, which means that Sarva Vyapi. That is pointed out by saying Sarva Vyapi. And he is there in every being. At the same time, he pervades all the beings. He is one. It is not that in separate beings there are separate Devata. He is only one. I think I gave you the example of, we saw that here, isn't it? Where will you find butter in milk? Can you say that this part of the milk has got butter, this part doesn't have butter? Every part there is butter, the entire milk there is butter. Butter is one only, but it is not seen. It is Gudaha. Can we see, when we boil the milk, can we see the butter? We can't. When we go put the milk into a process, the process of self-knowledge, churn the whole thing. First to make the milk into a curd and then, use those, what is that, the top layer of the curd, churn them thoroughly, then we will get butter, isn't it? But where that butter came from, it was there in the milk. And from there only it has come to this stage. Similarly, that milk is a great example for this entire Vedantic pursuit. So understand that there is butter in the milk is all the Vedanta is about. Everything is there only, there, Parameshwara only, everything. The whole milk is pervaded by the butter. The whole universe is pervaded by this Parameshwara, Ishvara, Paramatma, Satchidananda Swarup. That is what we have to understand. And he says, Karma Dhyakshaha. Karma Dhyakshaha means the one who presides over all the laws of karma. And he gives the results to everybody according to their own karma, all these jivas according to their own karma. Sarva Bhuta Adhivasaha, the one who is the Adhisthana, the foundation of all beings. Who is in reality? He is the Atma. Sakshi, the witness for everything. He doesn't do anything, he just witnesses. Cheta Kevala, he says, the witness in the form of non-dual Chaitanya and Nirguna. In the end, he says, free from all attributes. If he gets a guna, then he will be no longer be non-dual. Because with one guna, one personality, another guna, another personality, immediately Dvaitam will walk in. He has got to be Nirguna to be non-dual. So this is the Swarupa of Parameshwara. The next mantra we will see in the next class. That is also, all these mantras, all that he is quoting is all to establish that there is only one God. Ekam Daivatam Eva Asti. That's what it says. Okay. I will say the prayers, and if there are any questions, we can take. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। थैंक यू ऑल very much.
Namaste Guruji. Thank you very
Namaste.
much.
Hari
Thank
Om
you.
Guruji.
Namaskar.
Hari Om, thank you.
Hari
Madam,
Om
thank you.
Guruji. Hari Om Guruji.
Thank you.
Hari Om. Hari Om. Thank you very much.
Hari Om
Thank
Guruji.
you.
Thank you, namaskar.
Hari Om. Thank you. So we will close. Thank you very much. See you on next Sunday.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you.
Thank you.